On Father's Day morning, Michael Connell received a phone call about a quarter horse that had come back from the Reno Rodeo Parade, and during the middle of the night had collapsed in his corral, unable to stand. He was attended by a veterinarian who could not get the horse to stand either. So Michael was asked to respond, which he did with his daughter Caitlin and Willis and Sharon Lamb from the LRTC Horse Emergency Response Team. And we found the horse underneath a suspended tarp, as described, unable to stand. There was a backhoe with a bucket on hand that was originally thought might be useful to assist the horse into standing, but the horse was beyond that capability. So a decision was made to immediately get the horse placed onto the rescue glide and transport to the veterinarian. In this scene, the veterinarian is on scene, assisting with the horse's head, and pad the head at this point with a life preserver to protect it from scratches or having damage to its eye. Michael's directing the rescue glide. I'm at the cab, outside of the cab of the backhoe, making sure that the backhoe operator doesn't move the animal any farther than we need at each point here. Anytime we're hooked to a power equipment, it's a very delicate situation. Now the horse is secured to the rescue glide, and the objective is to get the horse past a few rocks and stumps and posts onto a little driveway where we can back the rescue trailer. We're starting to accumulate a few additional bystanders who will be useful as this progresses. However, they do pose a safety issue because they don't realize how volatile this horse can be. The line is still connected to the bucket. However, it's being used now as an anchor point. With prusiks attached to the haul line, it's fairly easy to correct the horse's trajectory to avoid some of the obstacles on the ground. Right now, some of the bystanders are constructing a sort of a ramp with a couple of pallets supported by some 2x6s and 2x12s. On them are a couple of sheets of plywood, and on the plywood will go to glide sheets, which will reduce the friction getting the horse into the trailer. The issue that we have with these trailers are that the tie hooks in the fronts of the trailers are typically designed for standing horses, not pulling 1,000 pounds of dead load, basically. So we're trying to minimize the pressure that occurs as the horse is making the entrance into the trailer. This horse is sedated, but as you'll see through a few scenes here, he can get pretty active with his feet, and this occurred more often than was videoed. The problem that we have in these scenes is that bystanders tend to get focused on what's actually happening, and when the horse is just laying there, they tend to forget that there's a pretty dangerous zone around the hooves of the horse. In this particular situation, there was a brush pile and some rocks behind the horse, so people tended to walk toward the hooves.
Are there any more 2x6s left? Quite a few. Okay, two more right here. I think we'll stop this wobble, and then we'll be pretty snug all the way up.
Michael's rigging a 3-to-1 Z-rig. What we've done here is we've taken two tie hooks, or tie rings, that are in the front of the trailer.
Yeah, we have to center his head.
We've attached two short ropes to each to form a V. The idea here is that you want the length of the V as long as is practical, because it minimizes the side pull on the rings and minimizes the stress to the rings. In this situation, we have to try to center the horse onto the glide sheets. The driveway also slopes a bit toward the right-hand side of the camera view. So the horse tends to want to settle in that direction as we're pulling him. The haul operation is set up so that the people that are going to be assisting on the haul line will be on the back side of the horse, not the hoof side. Right now we're attaching prussics so that the folks that are helping can have a good, safe, and firm handhold on the rope.
In the trunk, right?
In the bed, in the back,
Yeah, it was
in the tailgate. Oh, it shouldn't be locked. Okay, well, you'll have to do that.
Coordination's key at this point. One person needs to be in charge of the haul operation, give the instructions, and everybody needs to know that that's the person to whom they are to respond to.
Dan, go into the camera bag. The ones in the camera bag are good. There's a plastic bag in there with a charger. Those AA's are good.
Be careful around his legs because he can kick. He's not listening. There we go.
People get focused on the activities and not on the danger zone.
Yeah, I was going to say, okay. Take up the slack there.
The object here is to get the horse into the trailer without anyone sustaining a broken ankle.
Yeah, 1, 2, 3. All right, here we go. Okay, hold on. Oh, I see. Yeah, okay, got it.
As the event progresses, people are becoming more aware of what can happen with those feet, which is beneficial to us all since Michael and I spend a lot of time inside the trailer
1, 2, 3.
at this point.
Halt. Okay. And ho. Stop. Make sure we don't slide him off. Have you guys maintained pressure, Mike?
In these kinds of operations where you have layers of material on a ramp, it's always better to double check your work and make sure that you're staying aligned than try to race the horse into the trailer and perhaps get hung up on something. We're just about to let the lady in the umbrella know that she's in a tough situation when she realizes that the feet are right by her and she backs out on her own.
Stop! Slack! We have to reset our process because we're out of.
Okay, we're going to reset the prussics so that we can get a little more purchase on this haul line to get the horse into the back of the trailer.
Hey! Yeah, watch the route. Just hold on.
Okay, we had a safety stop because the lady with the umbrella actually was standing over the haul line.
Ready?
On the positive side, she's moved to a side of the horse that is not dangerous. Okay, here's a little lapse of judgment on the part of the veterinarian. You don't want to do that. Fortunately, the horse left a mark on the trailer and didn't crush her hand. There are better ways to deal with the overhanging hoof, as we'll see.
Sam, did you drop your keys? These yours?
At this point, the horse is pretty much level
Ford?
onto the floor of the trailer. So we're going to change our
No more.
anchor
He wants to
points,
go home sometime.
take up the long V short pieces of rope, which are precluding us from being able to, it doesn't work, lady, preclude us from getting the horse much farther forward, since we're not putting so much drag pressure on the horse.
Since we've done the heavy lifting, we just have to make sure we get that hind leg in.
The way to solve this problem is to pull the horse's hoof from the inside, which we can do either with a
You want a
hook
hook?
Stay quiet, I gotta go past the kill zone. Whoop,
Do you want a hook?
we gotta fix
Or in this case, Michael was able to find a safe position with somebody holding on to him to...
Even that out. You want me to go get a yellow hook?
There we go.
There we go. We're good. Good job,
Good.
Mike.
Pull.
If that hadn't
Pull
worked,
in.
the yellow
Wait,
hook would have
wait,
done
no.
it.
He calls it.
Yeah.
Okay, pull. Pull. That's all we got. That's all we need.
The horse has been unloaded at the veterinarian. It's being sedated again. The veterinarian requested that the shoes be pulled because he has some sort of special mats that the shoes can cut up. Even with some sedation on board, horse in a horizontal position that's somewhat sedated is not going to react the same as a horse that's standing for the farrier. So dealing with these feet can be a bit of an issue. It would have been better to perhaps simply duct tape the hooves to get him across the mat until he was completely sedated. However, this was what was requested, and so this is what Mike accomplished. Once the shoes were removed, some tape was applied to the horse's hooves that provided some traction, although the horse was not going to walk. Being in front of the hooves is safer than being behind, although I would prefer to avoid this whole scenario. The veterinary practice had a hoist, however, it was a traveling hoist and didn't have traction. At this point, it provided some assist by taking some of the weight off the front end of the rescue glide, so it was easier to maneuver the horse. And the horse stayed secured and hobbled until he was completely in to the hoist room. Once he was in the room and centered underneath the hoist, he could be lifted by a sling. However, he still was unable to get to his feet. In this operation, there was a lot of padding to prevent the horse from getting chafed or cut by any of the straps. Some of the straps had shipping boots wrapped around them. And there was a large quilt that protected the horse from the hobble tension. And here the horse is on a recumbent pad. Preliminary diagnosis is that the horse is suffering from West Nile virus. With the equipment here, the horse can be turned occasionally so that he's not left on one side constantly. And this veterinarian has had good results with other West Nile patients, so we're hopeful that he'll have a good prognosis. As of this recording, the blood work on this horse has not come back yet, so we don't know for sure what the problem is. However, at least he's where he can receive definitive veterinary care. This is Willis Lamb. I hope you've observed some of the safety issues involved with these kinds of rescues, and I thank you for watching the video.